You may have all the badges of honor in Elden Ring. You became an Elden Lord, bled the Lord of Blood dry, knocked the Scarlet Rot out of Melania, and maybe you even conquered all of Shadow of the Erdtree as well. But all of those accolades won't mean much the first time you drop into Limveld without any sense of where to go or what to do before night rolls in. So let's straighten out that learning curve by making your first couple of drops in Elden Ring Nightreign just a little bit easier with these 12 essential tips that you should know going in. Nightreign is a race against the clock to gear up and prepare yourself as best as you can before night rolls around and you're forced to face off against one of the end of day bosses. You'll want to be as efficient as possible while navigating the daytime portions of each day. To facilitate this, you'll want to make sure that one person on your team is the shot caller. They're the person bringing up the map, marking the locations of where you should go, and keeping an eye out on the circle and changing the plan if it needs to be changed.
Alright, let's hit up the church and then we'll go for the ruins up here.
Ideally, this person would also be fairly experienced and know what the challenges and rewards are of each point of interest, making calls based on what it is you need most in the moment. But if you're just starting out, even just putting a marker down on the next closest point of interest on your map will be helpful to your team. When you land, there should be a small enemy camp nearby. Quickly kill the mobs as your first task, get some runes, pull the weapons off the weapon racks, and pick up everything you can hold. Your next stop should be the nearest Site of Grace. Leveling in Nightreign is as easy as pressing a button at a Site of Grace, with each class gaining a set amount of points and specific stats every time they level up. A single level can also make a huge difference in your ability to quickly clear out enemies, especially early on, so make sure you spend those runes leveling up as fast as you can. Flask upgrades can be found at churches throughout the map. Once you're in a boss fight, there's no way to regain flasks, so whatever you bring into the battle is what you're going to have to work with, which is the main reason why these upgrades are so important to prioritize early. In addition to that, churches are also less defended compared to most other points of interest on the map. You can usually just run up to one, snatch the upgrade, and then move on. It's also important to do this early because as the ring shrinks, it will start blocking off access to the rest of the map, making it impossible to get more flasks until the next day. Nightreign is predictably tough, but From Software does throw players at least one bone in that the weakness of a Night Lord is known right from the start. Just note this icon as you're selecting the Night Lord you want to face off against on Night 3. Keeping that in mind, you should prep your relics and plan your run based on that weakness. If you have a relic that grants the elemental affinity the boss is weak to on your starting weapon, you can hold on to that throughout your run and just upgrade it with smithing stones to scale its power. Level 1 smithing stones can be bought or found and can upgrade gray rarity items to blue, while level 2 smithing stones can be found in caves as rewards for defeating the bosses within and can upgrade blues to purples. Alternatively, you can try to find a weapon that has that affinity in a run by looking for its icon as you're scanning the map. Most locations will have an affinity icon next to them, which denotes what type of enemies and rewards you can generally expect to see at that location. It's not a guaranteed drop, but it's your best shot at trying to get a certain type of weapon. Remember that you don't have to be actively wielding a weapon to reap the passive bonuses of it, you just need to have it equipped. Make sure to also communicate the needs of your build to your team. A person on your squad may have picked up something that has a passive that doesn't benefit them but would do wonders for you, and then they can then drop it for you to equip. One of the big considerations you'll have to make as a shot caller is whether or not to clear an enemy camp of all of its enemies, and whether just to rush towards the boss, kill it, reap the reward, and then move on. There's no one right answer here, as sometimes it really depends on what you need more of. Runes for leveling up, or gear to complete your build. One thing you should always consider though is the amount of time that it would take to clear camp versus the amount of runes you stand to earn from it. Some enemies drop more runes than others, and some enemies are also hard to kill than others. Generally, I would recommend whenever you come up to an Albinauric camp, either the archers or the bug-eyed weirdos, you should probably clear out the camp. These guys are rune pinatas, which makes sense because they're also one of the most farmed enemies in base Elden Ring. Anything that takes more than 3 to 4 hits to bring down that's not an Albinauric, you should also probably skip. And just so you know, Albinaurics typically spawn in Ice and Holy Ruins points of interest. Stone Sword keys are technically rare drops, but they can also be pretty reliably found in certain chests at numerous points of interest. The most common ones will be found in great churches, in this chest behind the altar. They can also very often be found in forts, either in this chest in the room with the 2 gates on both sides, or at the very top, usually guarded by the fort's boss. Anytime you get a stone sword key, you should seek out an Everjail, from level 3 or so and on. The bosses within are usually pretty easy, they drop a bunch of runes, and will also always give you the reward option of just choosing runes outright. Another camp that you should always keep an eye out for are the Fire Affinity enemy outposts. These will either be a red main camp, avoid these unless you need a merchant or some weapon drops from the weapon racks within, simply because they take a really long time, or if it's not a red main camp, it will be a camp with flame chariots. The flame chariot camps are great because you can do them fairly safely and quickly at practically any level, and they offer great rewards. Just make sure that you use the shortcut to bringing chariots down. Run to either the side or behind them, wall jump off their head, and press the right bumper when you hit the top of your jump. If you do it correctly, you'll stab the vent at the top of the chariot and kill them instantly. Just be sure to stay clear of the resulting explosion. Split your squad up to have each person take down a different chariot, and this is one of the best camps when it comes to how rewarding it is relative to how quickly you can clear it. It can even be done while wielding a bow, like you mostly will with the Iron Eye. One of the most important lessons to learn in Nightreign is when you're outmatched. The quickest way to crater a run is by attempting to take on a boss that you're not ready for. Not only will you waste a ton of time killing the boss, but if it ends up killing you and your squad mates, you'll lose a level and all of the runes that you had before you died. It's a position that's very hard to recover from, so it's best to avoid the situation altogether. A lot of this just comes down to experience, and knowing what bosses you can confidently beat, and which ones you should stay far away from. Here are some general recommendations though. Any roaming boss that has a red outline over their icon on the minimap is something you should outright avoid until you're at least level 9 or so. Ideally, you should be level 10 or higher. Bosses that are especially tough and you should avoid completely unless you're supremely confident in your squad are Draconic Tree Sentinel, Valiant Gargoyle, any dragon that isn't the brown dragon, and Deathrite Bird, just to name a few. You should also take care before venturing into the castle in the middle of the map. There are very tough enemies there, and you should generally avoid it until day 2. That said, you should always make it a priority to at least take a few steps into the castle on day 2. It's one of the most rewarding points of interest on the map for a number of reasons. For one, there are rune boosting plants at the base of the castle in the moat. For two, the enemies throughout the castle drop a ton of runes, especially if it's a spawn with Crucible Knights. There are also a few key points you should know about the castle. Entering through the basement will have you fighting a tough boss that usually drops a pretty good reward. But more than that, after defeating him, you can travel up the stairs to reach beyond the castle gate, where you'll find a chest that has a free talisman reward. Just outside the gate leading into the castle, there will also be some sort of boss waiting for you as well, whether it's 2 Crucible Knights, a dancing lion, or something else. Entering this way is a good way to get 3 pieces of gear back to back to back. You can also come in through the side of the castle, which you should do if your priority is instead to get runes to level up. Regardless of what enemies spawn in the castle, again, they will all drop a ton of runes when you kill them. Be careful of when giants spawn, as they will constantly bombard you with explosive magic bombs. Make it a priority to rush them down and kill them if this is the castle spawn that you get. As you work your way to the top of the castle, you'll be able to spot a merchant along the way, which is a reliable spot to cash in your smithing stones to upgrade a weapon, or to buy something from the merchant himself. And finally, if you follow this path all the way up to the top, you'll find an extremely tough boss waiting there for you. Be very careful about venturing into the castle while the circle is closing in. It can be hard to find the exit at times, and you can very easily ruin a run if you get stuck in the castle when the circle closes in. Be prepared to drop whatever it is you're doing and run if the circle starts to encroach. Speaking of consumables, make sure that you use them. In a time-limited game like Nightreign, things like gold pickled fowl feet can be especially useful in reaching a higher character level by the time you reach the boss of that day. Even just one level can make a huge difference in both your power and survivability. Don't underestimate throwables either, especially at lower levels. Throwable weapons can also be very helpful in doing big damage to enemies without you needing to put yourself at risk of taking damage. New to Nightreign is the addition of special class abilities. Each class has a standard ability that is typically on a quick cooldown and an ultimate technique. The standard abilities are usually a core part of that class's playstyle and should be utilized frequently to bring out their full potential. As the Wilder, use the grappling hook to initiate combat against an enemy. You can also use it to pull away an enemy's shield sometimes. As the Duchess, make sure that you're always using your restage technique to repeat the damage whenever there are big spikes in an enemy's health. As Iron Eye, make sure that you're constantly marking foes and using your dash as a means to escape attacks that are otherwise difficult to dodge. And as the Raider, make sure that you're using your character skill to tank enemy attacks and potentially deliver a powerful blow of your own once you take enough damage. And finally, a quick extra tip, don't just leave a staff or incantation seal on the ground just because you're not a mage. If they have good spells and you're not using a weapon slot for something more appropriate for your build, just pick it up. Many spells are very situationally helpful and don't require super high intelligence to make them work. You may even come across weapons you wouldn't normally use that benefit your class anyway, like shields that increase your range damage for the Iron Eye. And those are just a few tips to get you started right in Nightreign. For more help, make sure to head over to our ever-growing Nightreign wiki, and for everything else, keep it here on IGN.